Hello, thanks for joining me. I'm outside in the garden this morning. It is the second week of May, and a lot of things that I've been growing have been put into the garden. I'm going to show you some of the things that have been newly put into the garden, but first I wanted to start with what I've been trying to clone. So in this glass I have a sucker from a tomato plant, Abe Lincoln tomato plant. And I specifically took this one because I feel like my Abe Lincoln plant was dying and I wanted to save it without planting a new seed. So I took off the sucker, which was about 6 inches, and I put it in water. Now I don't know if it's supposed to go faster, but there are some root nodes coming out along the stem. I'm trying to get it in a place to see. There are some root nodes coming out on the stem, and I'm afraid this is not going to last much longer, although it does have some growth at the top here. So I'm going to put this into soil and see if this ends up growing. If it doesn't work, in my zone I can plant out tomatoes as late as July, so it wouldn't be too hard to restart some more if I needed to, if I specifically wanted the aid. But I am going to try putting this into the soil and see if it works better this way. And then once I finish with that, I'm going to move into the garden and show you some of the new things. Over here I have a bed of hot peppers that I recently planted. They are a mixture of super hot peppers here, and they were in the containers and starting to flower, and I had pulled off flowers 2 times. So this time I just let them stay and planted them a bit earlier than I normally would to see what would happen. Some of the peppers have taken off really well, and some of the peppers are struggling. Like this particular plant, which I believe is a jalapeno, it's kind of struggling, whereas that one in the back, it's doing okay. So some of these are doing well after transplant. Some of these are doing well after transplant and some are not. Over here in the bed where I had the squash and gourds last year, I have now moved to have tomatoes. There are 5 tomatoes on this side and just 1 on this side for now. I will be filling in this bed, but the tomatoes have been in about 2 weeks now, and they've grown quite a bit since they've been in the ground, so they're doing pretty well. Hopefully the trellising with the arch will work out for them, unlike the squash. With having had a mild winter, I was not sure this season when to harvest the garlic, since this garlic came up in late October and we really didn't start getting any cold weather until late December. So my garlic grew a lot more over this winter than it had last winter. What I decided to do was pull out a couple of bulbs to see how big they had gotten, to determine if I should let them sit for a while longer or if they were ready to harvest. This first bulb I pulled out was a good medium-sized bulb, and I wanted to test its neighbor to see if that also was a good size bulb, because if they all had been about that size, I would have taken them out. They had been in the ground at this point for 7 months. Last year I took them out around June, but we had colder weather set in for much longer last winter and spring than what happened this year. When I got to the third piece of garlic, that was a tinier bulb, and I decided that I was going to let these sit for a week. Little did I know that the real determining factor is whether the stem feels mushy or not, or I shouldn't say mushy, not like rotted, but it gives when you press it around. And I realized this because I had planted some early garlic called Blossom, which is considered a turban style, and it is ready in 5 months. So I stopped at the 4 pieces I took here. In the same topic and theme of garlic, I do have a couple new beds that we're working on. With the chickens having to be behind the netting and not roaming free in this area, I was able to expand my garden outside to the chicken yard. This is a 10 by 3 bed, and I'm going to be putting all the garlic in here to free up some of the beds from inside the garden, so I don't have 3 beds specifically for garden and then not be able to use them for the rest of the season, since my growing season with the hot weather is short, so that doesn't give me time to plant a lot of things. So there will be another one about 3 feet over from where this one is, and I've already tracked the sun, so I know that these will be in the sun as much as possible so that they do get enough sun to allow the bulbs to grow and fruit well. Some of the cool things that are happening in the garden, we're getting berries. So I've got a lot of berries on this. I have a lot of berries on this one, a lot of berries on this one, but I did buy it with a lot of fruit, and a lot of berries on its neighbor. These two here didn't have any flowers, so I don't know if they're just a later variety or if that's indicative of a problem. We shall see, because they did have fruit on them, but I think they kind of were the last ones. This guy over here is trying. Let me go closer. It's trying. It's got flowers on it. It hasn't completely died. It would be a boon if this one decided to resuscitate itself and rehab in its own bag, and then I can put it back with the other ones, but I expected it to just die, and it's still thriving over here. I'm really excited about this. This is blueberries. I'm going to have a bunch of flowers, and I hope that all the flowers turn into berries that I can actually eat, because there's so many berries on the blackberry. It's amazing. It's just coming out of everywhere. The size of it in comparison to last year is ridiculous. It is monstrous this year, and my concern is knowing what's going to be a secondary cane and a primary cane when it comes to the end of the season to harvest it. So I'm going to have to read up on things like that, but this just bloomed like crazy this year.